Hey guys, so in a recent video I did about 2 to 3 weeks back, I demonstrated my retro PC build, and it's basically a Pentium III with a Voodoo 3 graphics card. And this PC provides me with wide compatibility to handle pretty much any PC game from the tail end of the 80s all the way through the 90s and into the early 2000s. There are a few exceptions, of course. You know, I was surprised at how well it handled even a game like Jedi Outcast that came out in 2002. But that is pretty much where the party ends with how far the Voodoo 3 will take me, due to its limited total video memory of 16 megabytes. And I kind of hinted at the end of that video that I might pick up another graphics card to maybe squeeze out another couple of years of compatibility, maybe into 2003, 2004. Recall that I am also hamstrung by the motherboard as there is no AGP slot, which means I have to use an inferior PCI card. So the plan, since I'm dual booting Windows XP and Windows 98, is to keep the Voodoo 3 for DOS, Windows 98 gaming, and have a more modern, faster PCI card for Windows XP, and, maybe run games like Morrowind, Call of Duty 1, and if I'm lucky, Knights of the Old Republic, Half-Life 2. So you might be saying, why not just build a Windows XP machine with hardware from circa 2005 or something like that? And fair enough, I've got a plan in the works and that's coming. But that being said, I do like a challenge, and I do like the oddity of being restricted to using PCI cards only. So I picked up this GeForce FX5500 PCI off eBay for about $25, and I knew the FX series was bad as I had an FX5600 AGP back in the early 2000s, but I really didn't do my research, and the performance is so much worse than I expected. As you can see here in Morrowind, I'm only getting FPS in the mid-20s, low 30s, and I'm really just walking through a town, not in combat, very few NPCs, and I was really disappointed. And honestly, it doesn't really feel much better than the Voodoo 3. The Voodoo 3 doesn't work in Morrowind, by the way, but when I'm playing something like Jedi Outcast, I really didn't see much of a difference. So I thought, hey, why don't I do a full benchmark and comparison between the two, doing some 3D Mark tests and some gameplay FPS testing to see how much difference between the cards there really is. So a quick high-level comparison between the two. The GeForce, of course, has the 128 megs of video memory compared to the 16 of the Voodoo 3. Games like Morrowind require at least 32 megs to even boot up, so right out of the gate, I'm opening up some more game compatibility just on that alone, but the story here is that the FX5500 is just a much more modern card, releasing almost 5 years after the Voodoo 3. Running 3D Mark 2000, it's no surprise the FX5500 is outperforming the Voodoo here, but perhaps I was thinking the difference between scores would be much greater. But as the Voodoo 3 would have been released relatively close to the release of this test, it makes sense that it's performing well compared to the 5500. Now, in 3D Mark 2001, the gap between scores is much greater. The 3D Mark 2001 test is much more complicated, and the Voodoo 3 struggled here. It could have been that I was running it in XP. Looking back on this, I really should have run the Voodoo tests in Windows 98 with the more appropriate drivers. But the game tests all coming up have the Voodoo in Windows 98 and the GeForce in Windows XP. The first game I tested was Soldier of Fortune from 2000 on default settings, but I changed the resolution to 800 by 600. So nothing too crazy, really going for performance as opposed to high quality, and really not much of a difference between the two cards at all. And yeah, this confirms my initial thoughts on what I was seeing with the FX5500, that it really isn't offering me much of an upgrade over the Voodoo. Lesson for next time when I do this, I want to go into more depth, test different higher resolutions and graphical settings to really get the full picture. But in this case, it's still telling me pretty much all I need to know here. Moving on to Return to Castle Wolfenstein. I couldn't get Fraps to work with this game on the Voodoo card, so I had to manually use the game console to display FPS and kind of eyeball the numbers I was getting. That being said, the GeForce FX was performing a little better than the Voodoo. Again, here on normal settings, 800 by 600. And finally, the shocker here, I guess, Jedi Outcast from 2002. Normal settings, 800 by 600. The Voodoo 3 actually outperforming the GeForce FX. I would ignore the min FPS values here. This game, when you enter a loading area, it'll just drop your FPS to pretty much zero, at least on my machine. But otherwise, looking at the averages, yeah, the Voodoo 3 was doing better. So in conclusion, you might be expecting me to dump all over the FX5500. And I think the takeaway here isn't that, but the takeaway from these tests is that I'm really going to be absolutely crippled by that PCI slot limitation. If I had an AGP slot, that would really open up a plethora of faster cards that I could match my machine to if I wanted to extend the lifespan of compatibility. And I really think moving forward, I'm going to build a new rig, something to give me not only reliable performance for games released in the early to mid 2000s, but hey, I want to play on high graphical settings and resolutions as well too. So stick around for that and subscribe to the channel. I have something special coming up in the near future. That being said, I haven't totally given up on finding a better PCI card for this machine. I have something coming in the mail that should be arriving soon. I'm super confident the results will be much better than the FX5500. And who knows, maybe I'll be able to get something like Doom 3 running. So thanks for watching this video. Hope to see you next time. Take care.